They're not playing fair. They never intended to. And every time you react emotionally, explain yourself, or try to be the bigger person, you are actually playing their game by their rules. Today we change the board. These are not tips. They are not tricks. This is a complete doctrine. The 10 ruthless laws to not just counter a dirty player, but to dismantle the entire game they rely on. You believe your explanation will bring clarity. Machiavelli would recognize it as a surrender of your frame. You think negotiating with a bad faith actor is a path to peace. He would tell you it is a path to slow-motion bankruptcy. He didn't offer motivation. He offered a manual for the anatomy of influence. He exposed that most social conflicts are won long before the first word is spoken, decided by the structure of the environment and the control of information. By the end of this, you will not just survive their current attack. You will reposition yourself so far above the conflict that they lose the literal capacity to launch another. If you value your social standing, law number 4 is your only fortress. But if you are ready to ensure they never have the resources to even speak your name again, law number 9 is the only move that matters. Listen closely. The version of you that was easy to play is about to be deleted. Every time you engage with a dirty player on their level, you are financing your own destruction. You think you are fighting back, but you are actually just providing the raw materials they need to keep the machine running. They don't need to be right. They just need you to be loud. They don't need to win the argument. They just need to occupy your headspace until you are too exhausted to resist. You have been playing a game where your honesty is a target and your empathy is a weakness. It is time to stop being a participant and start being a strategist. We begin by cutting the lines of communication that keep you tethered to their chaos. 1. The law of emotional asphyxiation. Starve them of the reaction they need. Your calm is their confusion. When they expect fire, give them ice. A dirty player thrives on your emotional fuel. Cut the supply, and their strategy suffocates. Most people make the mistake of trying to fight fire with fire. You think that by showing them how much they've hurt you, or by shouting louder than they do, you will force them to see your perspective. You won't. You are simply giving them a larger target to hit. Machiavelli understood that the man who reveals his passion reveals his position. By showing emotion, you are handing them a map of your internal fortress. You are showing them exactly where the walls are thin and where the gates are loose. When they expect fire, you must give them ice, not a fake calm that masks a boiling interior, because they can smell that, but a clinical, absolute detachment. Imagine a situation where someone is trying to humiliate you in front of others. They use a joke that isn't a joke, or they accidentally mention a failure from your past. Your instinct is to defend, to explain, or to snap back. That is exactly what they have scripted for you. If you snap back, you look unstable. If you explain, you look guilty. If you stay silent and look hurt, you look defeated. Instead, you apply the law of emotional asphyxiation. You look at them with the same blank curiosity you would use to examine a strange insect on a window pane. You don't smile, you don't frown, you let their words hang in the air until the silence becomes heavy for them. When you refuse to react, the dirty player experiences a psychological misfire. Their brain has prepared for a specific payoff, your anger, and when it doesn't arrive, they begin to panic internally. They will try harder. They will move from subtle jabs to overt aggression. This is the moment they begin to expose themselves. By starving them of the reaction they need, you force them to overinvest. They become the loud one. They become the desperate one. You are no longer a participant in their game. You are the observer of their collapse. Your calm is not a retreat. It is a vacuum that sucks the power out of their presence. You are teaching them, without saying a word, that their weapons do not reach you. And once a manipulator realizes they can no longer pull your strings, they stop being a puppeteer and start becoming a performer with no audience. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous weapon in any conflict is not the sword, but the spirit of the opponent. If you can break the opponent's internal composure, the external battle is already won. The law of emotional asphyxiation is the clinical removal of that supply. It is the realization that your calm is their greatest confusion. When they expect fire, you must give them ice. not a cold shoulder that reeks of passive aggression. That's still an emotional reaction. You must give them a tactical void. Think about the last time someone tried to bait you. Maybe it was a backhanded compliment in front of your peers, or a text message designed to make you panic at 11 p.m. Your heart rate spiked, your thumbs hovered over the keyboard, ready to defend your honor. That physical reaction is exactly what they were banking on. If you respond in that state, you lose. To apply this law, you must become a black hole for their energy. When they throw a jab, it must land on nothing. You look at them with the same level of interest you would give to a weather report in a city you don't live in. You offer grey rock responses. I see. That's an interesting perspective. Or simply a slow, deliberate blink. By refusing to emote, you force the manipulator to escalate. They will try harder. They will get louder. They will say more outrageous things to get a rise out of you. This is the extinction burst. It is the moment they become desperate because the machine has stopped working. In their desperation to provoke you, they will begin to make mistakes. They will overextend. They will say things they can't take back in front of people who matter. While they are suffocating from a lack of your emotional oxygen, you are simply observing. You are no longer the victim of the drama. You are the scientist watching a specimen struggle in a jar. You aren't being nice. You are being unreachable. 2. The law of mirror force. Reflect their attack. Don't absorb it. If they use manipulation, expose the mechanism publicly as their tactic. If they use aggression, channel it back as evidence of their instability. Make their weapon their wound. Most people respond to a dirty move by trying to absorb it. They take the insult, they feel the sting, and then they try to crawl away or explain why the person was wrong. This is defensive behavior, and in the world of power, the defensive side is the losing side. The law of mirror force dictates that you never absorb an attack, you reflect it. You make their weapon their wound, you stop being the target and start being the mirror that forces them to look at their own ugliness. If someone uses manipulation against you, you don't argue with the lie, you expose the mechanism. If a coworker tries to take credit for your work in a meeting, don't get defensive and say, "Actually, I did that." That sounds like a child begging for a gold star. Instead, you reflect the move back onto them with a clinical question. "That's an interesting summary, but since you're presenting the data, could you walk us through the specific methodology used in Phase 3? I'm sure the team would love to hear your deep dive into the raw numbers." You haven't called them a liar. You've simply invited them to prove they aren't one. When they stumble and reveal they have no substance, the mirror has done its job. Their attempt to steal your light has only highlighted their own shadow. A dirty player relies on the shadow frame. They operate in the gray areas of implication, tone, and double meanings. They never say the insult directly. They wrap it in concern or advice. If you ignore it, they win. If you get angry, they win. The law of mirror force requires you to drag the mechanism into the light. You don't argue with the content of what they said. You describe the tactic they are using, clinically and publicly. If they use a gaslighting technique, you don't say, "That's not true." You say, "It's interesting that you're attempting to reframe the timeline of what happened. Why is that necessary for you right now?" By naming the move, you destroy its power. Manipulation only works when it is invisible. The moment you label the maneuver, the other person is forced to defend their character instead of attacking yours. You are mirroring their aggression back to them as evidence of their own instability. If they are shouting, you don't shout back. You pause and say, "Your volume suggests you're losing control of your argument. Do you need a moment to settle down?" You have taken their power move and turned it into a weakness indicator. You have shifted the focus from your supposed flaw to their obvious lack of composure. Machiavelli noted that a prince should never appear to be the aggressor, even when he is dealing the final blow. You must maintain the appearance of the reasonable party while the other person is forced into the role of the unstable antagonist. If they use aggression, you don't meet it with aggression. You meet it with a heightened, terrifyingly calm level of observation. If they raise their voice, you lower yours. If they lean in, you sit back. This contrast makes them look like they are losing their mind, while you look like you are in total control of the room. The mirror force is about transparency. Dirty players thrive in the fog of he said, she said. They want things to stay vague so they can twist the truth later. You reflect their tactics into the light by labeling them in real time. Use phrases like, "It seems like you're trying to make this personal to avoid discussing the actual project requirements," or, "I noticed you only bring up these concerns when there are observers present. Why is that?" By naming the game, you kill the game. You aren't attacking them, you are simply describing what they are doing. A manipulator cannot survive when their script is being read aloud by the person they are trying to manipulate. You are making the cost of attacking you higher than the reward of the win. You have spent enough time wondering why they are doing this to you. Stop asking why and start asking how. Once you see the how, you can break the mechanism. You have been the bigger person for too long, and all it has gotten you is a seat at a table where you are on the menu. These first two laws are about cutting the strings. You are no longer the puppet, you are the one who is about to collapse the stage. 3. The law of strategic isolation. A dirty player is never a lone wolf. They are a parasite. They cannot survive without a host or an audience. They rely on the social shield, the friends, colleagues, or family members they've manipulated into believing their version of reality. They use these people as a buffer. When you attack the dirty player, you are forced to attack the circle that protects them. This is how they win. They stay small and hidden, while you look like the aggressor fighting an entire group. You must stop trying to break the wall. You must silently dissolve the mortar that holds the bricks together. You are not going to win a shouting match in front of a crowd. You are going to strategically isolate the threat until they are standing in an empty room, shouting at shadows. Isolation is not about gossip. Gossip is weak. Gossip is emotional. When you gossip, you are playing the dirty player's game, and they are better at it than you are. Strategic isolation is about the cold delivery of factual warnings. You do not go to key people to complain about how you feel. You go to them to provide intelligence on a shared risk. You speak to the stakeholders, the influencers, and the mutual friends in a tone of professional concern. You say, "I've noticed a pattern of information being distorted in our project meetings, and I wanted to ensure you had the original data so your department isn't blindsided." You aren't attacking a person, you are protecting a process. You are planting the seed of doubt. When the dirty player eventually tries to manipulate that person, your warning acts as a psychological vaccine. The person doesn't see a friend talking, they see the pattern you predicted. You must silently detach them from their support network by providing factual warnings. There is a massive psychological difference between a complaint and a warning. A complaint is emotional, it's about how you feel. People tune out complaints because they don't want to get involved in drama. A warning, however, is professional, detached, and focused on the other person's risk. You don't tell your mutual friends, "They were so mean to me." You say, "I've noticed a pattern of information being leaked lately, and I wanted to make sure you were protected. I've decided to stop sharing certain details with them for my own security, and I thought you should know so you aren't caught off guard." You aren't asking for help. You are providing value. You are planting a seed of doubt that the dirty player cannot counteract because you aren't fighting them, you are protecting others. Think about the office manipulator who whispers in the manager's ear. If you go to the manager to defend yourself, you've already lost. Instead, you isolate them by making their behavior a liability to the manager's goals. You provide data, logs, and timelines that show how the player's game is actually hurting the department's bottom line. You make it a matter of process, not personality. When the dirty player reaches out for their usual support, they will find the atmosphere has turned cold. They will find that the people they relied on to validate their lies are now looking at them with suspicion. A manipulator without an audience is just a person talking to themselves in an empty room. By the time they realize they are alone, you have already moved the entire social circle to a position where their toxicity cannot reach. You are removing the audience so the performer has nowhere to hide. Let them fight alone. Let them realize too late that the people they thought were their shields have quietly stepped aside to watch them fall. 4. The law of the information blackout. Your biggest weakness is your desire to be understood. When someone lies about you, your instinct is to correct them. When someone attacks your character, your instinct is to defend it. When someone treats you unfairly, your instinct is to complain. Every time you do this, you are handing the enemy the keys to your kingdom. You are giving them intelligence. Every word you speak in your defense is a new piece of hardware they will weaponize against you. They will take your explanation, twist one sentence, and use it to fuel their next attack. They will take your complaint and show it to others as proof that you are unstable or obsessed. To end the game, you must become an information black hole. Every word you utter to an enemy is a weapon you are handing them to use against you. Your need to be understood is your greatest liability. When you explain your motives, you are giving them a target. When you complain about their behavior, you are giving them a map of your pain. When you defend yourself against a lie, you are giving that lie oxygen and a seat at the table. To a dirty player, there is no such thing as a civil conversation. There is only intelligence gathering. They are listening for your insecurities, your triggers, and your future plans. The moment you speak, you are leaking power. To end their game, you must become an information black hole. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous man in the room is the one who says nothing. Silence is not a lack of communication, it is a total denial of access. From this moment forward, you stop explaining yourself to the person playing dirty. If they ask why you did something, you give a one-word answer or a blank stare. If they accuse you of something, you don't say, "I didn't do that." You say, "Believe what you want." When you defend yourself, you are implicitly accepting their right to judge you. You are putting them in the position of the High Court and yourself in the position of the defendant. Why are you giving a subordinate that kind of power? If they accuse you of something ridiculous, and you spend 10 minutes explaining why they are wrong, they have won. They have controlled your time, your energy, and your focus. But if you look at them and say nothing or give a one-word flat, "Okay," you have denied them the handle they need to pull you into the mud. You are becoming a blank screen. They will throw insults at the screen, and the insults will fall to the floor because there is nothing for them to hook onto. You think you need the last word to win. Machiavelli would tell you that the person who needs the last word is the one who is controlled by the other. The person who can walk away in total silence is the one who owns the room. Examine your recent messages. How much of your text history is you trying to clarify things to someone who has no intention of understanding you? You are bleeding out. Every explanation is a confession that their opinion matters to you. Stop. Start the blackout today. No updates on your life, no defense of your character, no reactions to their provocations. When you stop providing data, the dirty player begins to starve. They will try to provoke you more intensely to get a read on you. They are desperate for a signal. Give them nothing. Your silence will create a psychological pressure that forces them to fill the void with their own mistakes. They will start talking too much. They will start making wilder accusations that make them look insane to observers. By saying nothing, you are letting them narrate their own downfall. You aren't just protecting yourself, you are building a wall of static that they can never penetrate. If you have realized that your own words have been used as a rope to hang you, and you are ready to cut the line right now, drop this in the comments. The signal is dead. 5. The law of exploited momentum. Turn their aggression into exhaustion. Let them commit to their attack fully, then step aside. Their own force will carry them past you into a position of overextension and weakness, where they are vulnerable. You have been exhausted because you are trying to stop a moving train with your bare hands. Every time a dirty player launches an attack, a false accusation, a public snub, or a sudden change in plans, your first instinct is to brace yourself and push back. You think that by stopping their momentum you are winning. You aren't. You are just absorbing the impact and draining your own battery. Machiavelli understood that the most efficient way to defeat a superior force is not to meet it head-on, but to lead it into a void. You must stop being the wall and start being the open door. A dirty player is inherently aggressive. They are over-invested in your downfall because they are playing a high-stakes game of manipulation. They often move with more force than they can actually control. They are leaning into their lies, leaning into their insults, and leaning into their social maneuvers. The law of exploited momentum dictates that you let them commit 100% to their strike. You don't interrupt. You don't correct them mid-sentence. You don't try to soften the blow. You wait for the exact moment they have put all their weight behind the attack, and then you simply step aside. When they launch a massive public attack or a calculated betrayal, let them commit to it fully. Do not interrupt. Do not try to stop the narrative halfway through. Let them go all in. Let them tell their lies to everyone. Let them send that unhinged email. Let them overstep their authority. By stepping aside at the last second, you allow their own momentum to carry them past you. Because they expected resistance and found none, they will overextend. They will say too much. They will make claims they cannot prove. They will look desperate and unhinged to any objective observer. Think about the coworker who tries to call you out in a group meeting. They are aggressive, loud, and clearly trying to bait you into a fight. If you fight back, the room sees two people arguing. If you simply wait, listen with a calm expression, and then ask a single quiet question like, "Are you finished?" You have exploited their momentum. They have spent all their energy, and you have spent none. They are now standing in a puddle of their own sweat, looking like a child having a tantrum, while you remain the adult in the room. You haven't defeated them. You've simply allowed them to run full speed into a brick wall of their own making. You are not taking it, you are timing it. There is a specific point where aggression turns into vulnerability. Wait for that point. When they are gasping for air and looking for a reaction to validate their behavior, that is when you have total control. 6. The law of the unassailable position. Never fight on the ground they choose. A dirty player is like a shark. They are deadly in the water but useless on land. Their water is the realm of rumors, personal insults, emotional history, and he said, she said drama. This is the ground where they have practiced. This is where they have weapons. When you try to argue about who said what 3 months ago or why they hurt your feelings, you have stepped into their ocean. You will lose every time. To end the game, you must forcibly move the conflict to the land, a battlefield of process, evidence, and objective reality where they have no teeth. When they try to make it personal, you must make it about the process. If they spread a rumor that you are difficult to work with, do not defend your personality. That is a trap. Instead, demand the evidence. Ask for specific dates, specific missed deliverables, and specific documented complaints. When you move the conversation from feelings to data, the dirty player begins to shrink. They cannot produce data because their entire attack is built on shadows. You are forcing them to use tools they don't possess. You are changing the battlefield to one where integrity and competence are the only things that count. You are losing because you are fighting on their terrain. When someone attacks your character and you respond by trying to prove you are a good person, you have already lost. You have allowed them to define the battlefield. They chose character, and because character is subjective and messy, they can keep you in that mud pit forever. Machiavelli knew that the terrain determines the victor before the first sword is drawn. To end the game, you must move the fight to a ground where they have no weapons. You must change the conflict from the personal to the procedural. A manipulator hates a paper trail. They thrive in the vague. They love words like people are saying, or it feels like. When you shift the battlefield to process and evidence, you are standing on an unassailable peak. You aren't arguing about your soul, you are arguing about a spreadsheet. On that ground, their dirty tactics are useless. They have no data, they have no receipts. Look at your daily life. When a toxic family member or partner tries to draw you into an emotional screaming match about how you always make them feel, you are standing in their swamp. Step out of it. Move to the ground of specific actions. Say we can talk about feelings later. Right now, I am looking at the fact that you broke a specific agreement. Let's solve that first. By refusing to fight on the emotional ground they chose, you make their weapons irrelevant. They want a storm. You give them a clinical audit. They want a personal war. You give them a professional boundary. When you occupy a position of such unshakable logic and procedural integrity, their attacks look like the desperate flailing of an inferior being. You don't have to be better than them. You just have to be on a different map. If you have finally realized that you've been fighting losing battles on their territory, drop this in the comments. I am changing the battlefield. 7. The law of public judgment. Force their game into the light. A dirty player is a creature of the shadows. They rely on the side conversation, the subtle sabotage, and the plausible deniability. They operate on the assumption that you are too polite to call them out in front of witnesses. They bank on your desire to avoid a scene. This is why they feel safe taking shots at you in meetings, in group chats, or at family dinners. They think they can bleed you out with 1,000 small cuts, and that you will just sit there and take it to keep the peace. You have been playing into their hands by keeping your grievances private. You think you're being professional, they think you're being a doormat. To end the game, you must become the light. But you do not do this by making an accusation. Accusations look like drama. Instead, you use strategic patience to let them expose themselves. When they make a passive-aggressive comment in front of others, do not ignore it, do not laugh it off, and for the love of God, do not get angry. Instead, you pause the entire room. You look at them with total calm focus and say, "I'm not sure I understand the intent behind that comment. Could you clarify exactly what you meant by that?" By asking for clarification, you have dragged their shadow tactic into the public square. You haven't attacked them, you've simply asked them to explain their own words. Now the entire audience is looking at them. They have two choices. They can admit they were being a jerk, or they can try to backpedal. Either way, they look weak. If they try to gaslight you by saying it was just a joke, you don't let them off the hook. You say, "I understand it was a joke, but I'm interested in the logic behind it. Why is that funny to you?" You are forcing them to perform their dirty game under a high-powered spotlight. Most manipulators will crumble under this pressure. They are brave in the dark, but they are cowards in the light. You aren't judging them. You are simply making it impossible for them to hide. When the group sees the mechanism of the attacker loses their social status. You have turned their secret weapon into a public embarrassment. A dirty player's power comes from the fact that no one else sees what you see. They are a Dr. Jekyll to the world and a Mr. Hyde to you. The law of public judgment is about aligning those two versions of them. You aren't attacking them, you are simply providing them with a stage. If they are lying about your work, ask for a public review of the data. If they are spreading rumors, bring the rumor up in a calm, professional meeting and ask for the source so it can be rectified. When you bring the shadow game into the sun, it evaporates. The observers, your boss, your friends, your family, will see the sweat on their brow. They will see the stutter in their voice. They will see the dirty player for exactly what they are. You don't have to be the judge, you just have to provide the courtroom. Once the audience sees the mechanism, the manipulator can never use it on you again. Their reputation is the only thing they value more than their control. Threaten the reputation by demanding transparency, and they will flee to find a darker target. 8. The law of the high ground. Occupy a position that is too expensive to attack. You have been playing defense because you feel vulnerable. You worry about what they'll say, what they'll do, and how it will affect your status. A dirty player smells that fear. They look for the cracks in your performance, the gaps in your knowledge, and the inconsistencies in your character. They are looking for a handle, something they can grab onto to pull you down. If your work is mediocre, they will weaponize your mistakes. If your reputation is shaky, they will weaponize the rumors. The law of the high ground is about reaching a level of absolute competence where their attacks become mathematically irrelevant. Machiavelli knew that the best defense is not a shield, but a position of such strength that the enemy realizes attacking you is a form of suicide. When you are the most valuable person in the room, when your results are documented, and when your integrity is visible to everyone, a dirty player's lies stop sounding like the truth and start sounding like envy. Think about the inferior being dynamic. When a professional athlete is heckled by a fan who can't run a mile, the athlete doesn't get angry. They don't stop the game to argue. Why? Because the gap in competence is so vast that the attack has no weight. You must create that same gap between you and the person playing dirty. If they are busy gossiping, you must be busy winning. If they are busy sabotaging, you must be busy building. You make yourself unassailable by being so good at what you do that the organization or the social group literally cannot afford to lose you. When you reach this level, the dirty player's games look like desperate flailing. People will see their attacks and think, why is this person so obsessed with someone so much more successful than them? You don't have to defeat the game, you simply have to outgrow the stadium. When your position is absolute, their dirty tactics don't hurt you. They only serve to highlight how far beneath you the attacker truly is. You don't win by fighting them, You win by making them look ridiculous for even trying. Stop checking their social media. Stop asking what they said about you. Stop worrying about the optics of the conflict. The highest form of power is the ability to be unaffected. When a dirty player realizes that their most vicious attack didn't even make you skip a beat or change your schedule, they experience a profound sense of inferiority. You aren't just winning, you are demonstrating that you live in a different reality, one where their games don't have the currency to buy your attention. You are the lighthouse, they are the wave. The wave can scream and crash all it wants, but the lighthouse doesn't move, it just keeps shining. If you want to end the game, stop playing it. Become so big that their entire world fits inside your shadow. If you have realized that your best revenge is reaching a level they can never touch, drop this in the comments. I am moving to the high ground. 9. The law of the calculated counter. When you strike back, do not strike to wound. Strike to remove the ability to play again. Most people fail here because they react out of a sense of momentary pain. Someone insults you, so you insult them back. Someone steals a client, so you try to steal a smaller one from them. These are reactive swipes. They are noisy, they are messy, and they are ultimately ineffective. All a reactive swipe does is tell the dirty player that their attack landed. It confirms you are hurt, and it signals that you are now an active participant in their gutter-level game. Machiavelli would look at your petty retaliation and see a tactical disaster. He understood that if you are going to hit an enemy, you must do it with such overwhelming force and preparation that they are rendered incapable of ever mounting a second strike. You do not want a feud, you want a termination. A dirty player relies on the fact that you will be predictable in your anger. They expect you to lash out immediately. Instead, you must practice a terrifying level of patience. You stay silent while they think they are winning. You let them accumulate a mountain of evidence against themselves. You wait until they are at their most confident, their most public, and their most vulnerable. Then you deliver a single devastating, well-prepared countermove. This isn't an argument, it's an evidentiary execution. If they have been sabotaging your career, you don't complain to them. You present a finished, airtight dossier of their malfeasance to the one person who can fire them. You don't give them a chance to explain. You don't give them a warning shot. You remove their capacity to function in your environment. Think about the psychological impact of the calculated counter. For months, they thought you were a victim. They thought you were an information black hole because you were weak. Then, in one surgical moment, their entire reality collapses. They realize that while they were playing a game of checkers, you were building a gallows. This is the only way to deal with a persistent, bad faith actor. You must make the cost of playing with you so high that their survival instincts finally override their malice. You aren't teaching them a lesson about kindness, you are teaching them a lesson about consequence. You are ending the current attack by ending the attacker's ability to play. 10. The law of the silent exit. Your ultimate power is the ability to walk away from their game entirely and into a reality they cannot touch. This is the final unanswerable move. A dirty player is a parasite, and a parasite cannot survive without a host. Their entire identity is built on their ability to affect you, to control you, and to provoke you. If they can make you cry, they are powerful. If they can make you stay up at night, they are relevant. The moment you demonstrate that your world does not depend on their approval, their conflict, or even their existence, you have achieved a level of dominance they can never reach. You aren't leaving because you're scared. You're exiting because they have become too small for your world. The silent exit is not a dramatic speech. It is not a final message where you tell them off. A final message is just one last bit of emotional fuel you're handing them. The silent exit is a total cessation of existence. You change the locks, you block the number, you move the project, and you never mention their name again. When people ask about the drama, you look at them with genuine confusion and say, "I'm not sure what you're referring to. I've been focused on my growth." This is the God level of social power. It shows that you have so much sovereignty over your own life that no person, no matter how dirty they play, has the permission to occupy space in your mind. By walking away silently, you leave the dirty player in a vacuum. They have all this pent-up aggression, all these scripted traps, and all these prepared lies, and nowhere to put them. They are left holding a live grenade with no one to throw it at. They will eventually turn that toxicity on themselves or on their own allies. You, meanwhile, have moved into a new reality. You have stopped being a counterplayer and started being the author of your own story. This is the end of the game because you have removed the board itself. You have proven that their laws don't apply to a sovereign being. You have stayed until the end because you recognize the patterns I've described. You felt the knot in your stomach and the frustration of being played by someone who doesn't respect the rules. Your attention today is the first step toward reclaiming your territory. If this doctrine has shifted your perspective, if it has given you the clinical clarity you've been missing, then align yourself with this message, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. This isn't a favor to me, it is a signal to yourself that you are no longer a victim of the decency trap. It is an admission that you are ready to study the mechanics of power as they actually are, not as you wish them to be. For those who are ready to stop watching from the sidelines and want to master these dynamics at a professional level, I invite you to join the membership. This is the inner circle. It is a space for the few who understand that influence is an architecture and control is a skill. Inside the circle, we go deeper into the psychological blueprints and tactical maneuvers that are too dangerous for a general audience. You will get access to insights that others do not have and a level of strategic support that ensures you are never the prey in any room you enter. The door is open for those who are ready to move forward. For the rest, the world will continue to be a confusing and unfair place. Thank you for your discipline and your time. Not everyone is capable of hearing these truths without flinching. You have earned the right to apply them. Remember what I told you at the beginning. The person playing dirty is counting on your predictability. From this second forward, that version of you no longer exists. Apply the laws, hold the line. I will see you in the next video.